First breaking news and what has become a deadly struggle for democracy in Iran. There have been calls for a general strike and more protests today, a day after 7 demonstrators were killed by pro-government forces. And now, a new development. Iran's Council of Guardians, which oversees elections there, agreeing just moments ago to recount some, not all, but some of the ballots from last week's disputed election. The 12-member Guardian Council includes clerics and experts in Islamic law. It has the apparent authority to throw out an election if it sees fit. CNN producer Samson Desta joins us now. He's on the telephone from Tehran. Samson, what is the Guardian Council prepared to do, and will that be enough to quell the protests that have been growing in intensity and saw those 7 people killed late yesterday?
Well, John, a very quick decision made by the Guardian Council today after they met with the 3 leading opposition candidates, Mr. Mousavi, Mr. Karoubi, and Mr. Rezai, in which the candidates filed a complaint regarding the results of the election. The Guardian is now saying they are going to recount some of the votes, not all the votes, but some of the disputed votes. But the opposition has been very clear from the beginning that it wants a new election. It will not accept a recount because they're saying a recount will not uncover any acts of fraud. So they're calling for a new election. They're saying 53 million ballots have been printed, and then of those, only 39 million have been used. So what happened to the 14 million that are missing? Those need to be accounted for, so there needs to be a new election. Now, in regards to the violence, and it's been quite tense in the streets in the past few days, late last night there were pockets of violence within the city, throughout the city, in which a number of people were killed, and some now fear that it could be a continuation of that unrest today because both sides of the camps, both Mousavi and Ahmadinejad protesters, are vowing to take to the streets today. Now, within the past 15 or 20 minutes, Mousavi and Karoubi camps have come out to urge their supporters not to come out and not to take part in these rallies today and to avoid any violent confrontation. John?
You know, we talked about this idea of a recount, Samson, and some questions are being raised as to exactly what went on Friday, particularly how did they count 39 million handwritten ballots so quickly, and why wasn't there the level of detail in election data that typically comes out? Why didn't that come out over the weekend?
Well, that is very difficult to answer. I mean, that's the question, that's the mystery, and that has been the complaint from the Mousavi side, is that there hasn't been any transparency. And that's why they filed this complaint to the Guardian Council to say, why is it that these votes have not been counted? And if we have 53 million ballots, where's the remaining 14 million? And it's just that they're saying needs to be looked at, and a recount cannot account for 14 million ballots that are missing. Only a new election and a fair and clear transparency will uncover exactly what is taking place and how this is being done. John?
Samson Desta live from Tehran for us with the very latest. Samson, thanks so much for that.
Well, there is a scheduled rally in less than half an hour from now in support of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. He is in Russia right now for a pre-scheduled conference, but the embattled leader is deciding not to postpone that visit there. The opposition, meantime, is planning more protests about an hour after Ahmadinejad's rally in the same location. That's certainly another potential powder keg after Iran's state media says that 7 demonstrators were killed in clashes with pro-government forces yesterday, and there were huge crowds, in fact, miles long, people from all across Iran hitting the streets to protest what they say was a stolen presidential election. This amateur video, shot north of Tehran's Azadi Square, captures the chaos as a day of mostly peaceful protest turned violent. Iran's state radio confirming 7 shooting deaths after protesters apparently tried to storm a compound linked to the government's Revolutionary Guard. Our Christiane Amanpour in Tehran covering the demonstrations when the violence broke out.
They had taken this decision to try to allow this political rallies to take place in a peaceful atmosphere. And what they told us they were doing was cracking down on the violence.
Earlier in the day, opposition leader Mir Hussein Mousavi led hundreds of thousands of Iranians in a massive rally stretching more than 5 miles, according to Iranian television. Mousavi urging peaceful protests, vowing to, quote, pay any cost to fight the results of an election he believes was stolen from him. But then the bullets began flying. And as security forces limited the access of news crews, citizens pulled out their cell phones to document the chaos.
I am deeply troubled by the violence that I've been seeing on television. The democratic process, free speech, the ability of people to peacefully dissent, all those are universal values and need to be respected.
Meantime, the Iranian government appears to be trying to block internet access and other communications this morning. The New York Times is reporting that many citizens are unable to send text messages. Iranians, though, are managing to post blogs on Facebook and help coordinate protests using Twitter. Twitter was actually planning a shutdown for maintenance, but because so many Iranians are depending on the service, Twitter decided to stay online. John?
International voting experts have been analyzing the Iranian election for signs of possible fraud. And here's some of what they're questioning. We were talking with Samson Dest about this a few minutes ago. How more than 40 million handwritten ballots could be counted within a few hours. How challenger Mir Hussein Mousavi, who was an ethnic Azeri Turk, was defeated so soundly in his own province. One analyst said it's the equivalent of Barack Obama losing the African-American vote to John McCain in the 2008 election. Mousavi's newspaper also claiming more than 10 million votes were missing national identification numbers, making them untraceable. And President Obama is calling for restraint while the investigation plays out.
My understanding is that the Iranian government says that they are going to look into irregularities that have taken place. We weren't on the ground. We did not have observers there. We did not have international observers on hand. So I can't state definitively one way or another what happened with respect to the election.